everyone, I have another themed reading video for you, which I'm going to film over the course of this week. For context, I review books here, also on BBC Radio and for a few other outlets where I write book reviews. So I'm sent about 40 review requests a week via email from publishers. I only say yes to one or two because there's only so much time, in life, and I only have so much room in the flat. So I don't accept unsolicited review copies from publishers, but occasionally I am sent some. Often those books are books that I would never have said yes to in the first place, and I always make sure that those try and go to people who would enjoy them. But occasionally I am sent books where I think, oh well, maybe I would like to read those. So I've made a pile of those maybes, and I've had them next to my wardrobe for a while, and I thought this week what I would do is read the beginning of all of them and decide whether or not I would like to read them. Not probably straight away, but whether or not I basically want to put them on my shelf or whether I would like to part ways with them. And I thought I would talk to you about them and tell you my thoughts on them, because even if I don't end up liking or gelling with some of these books, maybe you like the sound of them and you would like to check them out. So let me show you briefly what they are. I'm not going to read any blurbs because I will be talking to you about them throughout the course of the week. So this is August by Callan. This is published by Granta, and I think it's told from the point of view of a 12-year-old boy called August. This is The Family Clause by Jonas, Hassen, Khemiri. This is a book of poetry that Faber have sent me by Barbara Kingsolver. I did not know that she wrote poetry. This is her book How to Fly in 10,000 Easy Lessons, which is coming out this month, in August. I'm actually very excited about this one. This one is Feathertide by Beth Cartwright. It's a middle grade book, and I'm getting all kinds of His Dark Material vibes from it. This is A Lover's Discourse by Xiaolu, and I have never read any of her books, but I do have two, or maybe just one or two of her books on my TBR. I also was sent Rose Tremain's new novel. This is called Islands of Mercy. I have never read a novel by Rose Tremain. Maybe this will be the one that I read. And then this is probably one I would have said yes to had I been emailed about a review copy. This is The Butterfly Lampshade by Aimee. It's her new novel. I've read one of her novels before and one or two of her not poetry collections, short story collections before. She is great at magical realism, and I'm really intrigued by her. I did prefer her short stories to the novel that I read, but we'll see what this one is like. So that's what this vlog is going to be. I'm going to talk you through these books as I read them, and I'm also going to show you a few other things that I am up to. Namely, this evening, I'm going to dye some clothes because I've got the bug for doing that. At the weekend, I dyed a pair of dungarees that Jean had bought me last year. She very kindly bought me a pair of Lucy and Yak dungaree shorts in their sale. It was a peach colour though, and it kind of drained me of colour. It washed me out, and it just didn't really suit me. So I thought, well, maybe I'll tie-dye it. But then I thought, no, I'm going to actually dye it. So I dyed them olive green, and I love the way that they turned out. I will insert a picture here. Annoyingly, I forgot to take a before picture, but you can just imagine what they look like, peachy orange, and now they're this amazing olive green. And I thought, well, I want to do that again. It was very, very satisfying. I feel like I'm ticking lots of lockdown cliches. So a few years ago, I bought a white dress, I think from New Look. It was 3 or 4 years ago. I'll insert a picture here. You can tell how long ago it was because I have lots of hair still. And I love this dress. I loved it so much that I bought it in 3 colours. That's what I tend to do with clothes, actually. If I find something that I really like, I'll just buy a couple of them in different colours and then I'm just sorted. So I bought it in white, I bought it in blue, which has white daisies all over it, and in dusty pink as well. And I wear the pink and the blue ones all the time. I never actually pick up the white one because I always think I'm going to spill stuff on it, and I love it so much I don't want to spill stuff on it, so I just don't wear it, which is ridiculous, and I would like to wear it. So I thought if I dyed it a different colour, I'll get a lot more use out of it. So that's what I am going to do. Who remembers the Special K adverts for Kellogg's? And it was always a woman in an amazing red dress. I will insert a picture here. And I always thought, my God, I want a dress like that. I want a bright red dress. So I have got some bright red dye, and I am going to dye this white dress this evening. These are really good, not gifted or sponsored or anything like that. you just throw this in the washing machine and then you wash the clothes again afterwards and then you're done. I will show you how that works out, and then afterwards I'll talk to you about books, because I'm assuming that that's probably why you're here. It is later. You may be able to hear the washing machine in the background. After you put in clothes that you dye, you need to do an empty cycle to make sure that there's no dye left in the machine. When the dress dries, which is over there, I'll show it to you in the morning. But I wanted to quickly come on here and tell you that I have looked at 2 of the books in that pile, and let me tell you my thoughts. So first off, I read the beginning of A Lover's Discourse by Xiaolu, and I actually found it difficult to stop reading this. And I think that is, well, 1, I'm enjoying it, but 2, also it has very short chapters. And I think when you're reading something with chapters that are only a couple of pages, you always think, oh, well, just one more. So that's good. I have read 23 pages and I'm definitely going to continue reading this book. I may even put this on my bedside table and read it soon. So this is about 2 people who meet, the first of which is our narrator, who's moved over from China very recently to the UK, to London, and the other is a man who grew up in Australia and Germany and now also lives in London. There are parts of this also that I'm finding a little bit too convenient. So when she first moved to the UK, she saw a Brexit bus and she didn't know what Brexit was and she didn't know what vote leave was, so she started asking people around her, what is vote leave? And it just felt like a very clumsy way to enter that conversation. It didn't feel very subtle. Not that a Brexit bus is very subtle, because it was awful, but yeah, that just felt a bit clunky, I suppose, but I'm still drawn to it and I'm going to keep reading it. The other book that I started reading was August by Callan, and this one I don't think I'm going to continue with. Not because I read it and I thought I hate this, but just because if I had read the beginning of this in a bookshop, I don't think I would have bought it. I just don't think it's my cup of tea. So the prologue is about a couple, a man and a woman, who are pregnant, going to have a baby, talking about the name they're going to give their son. And then the first chapter opens when August is 12, I think. And he wants to earn some money. So his dad says, why don't you kill all the cats on the farm and collect their tails? And I'll give you $1 per tail. Now, I don't mind violence in books. Like, I don't mind horrible things. As you will know if you have been around a while, but I just don't know. There was just something about that. I just thought, I don't think I want to read about that very much. Not today, thanks. And the dialogue in here doesn't feel very believable to me either. It does not feel like natural dialogue that people would say. So that drew me out of it as well. So I'm gonna pass this on to somebody else. I'll come back to you in the morning to show you the dress, and then we can continue these bookish discussions. Good morning. It worked, though it's come out kind of more pink than red. I don't understand the science of dyeing things, so if anyone is better at this than me, let me know. I wonder if it's because I dyed it from white that it's gone a bit lighter. If the fabric had been darker to begin with, maybe it would have gone more red, but I don't mind because I really like this colour. I will show you a cutaway so that you can actually see it properly, but no, I'm really pleased with that. Mr. M's mum is away at the moment, which is why we're looking after Lola for a couple of days, and it also means that we can use her garden because she lives right next to us. We can go use her garden while she's away. I got up early to start making some cinnamon rolls, and I'm going to finish doing those in a minute. And I'm also going to make a lot of cucumber maki rolls, and I'm going to go and work in Mr. M's mum's garden. And Sana and Lena are coming round, and we're going to have a freelance work day. She's got a huge table in her garden. I think it's about 5 meters long, so it's going to be like the Mad Hatter's Tea Party in Alice, where we're sitting so far away from each other, shouting down the table, sharing, well, not sharing cinnamon rolls. I have made cinnamon rolls for them to consume. And yeah, I haven't had a work day with other people, obviously, for 5 or 6 months. So I feel like a kid who's about to go to a birthday party, except not really, because I really hated going to people's birthday parties because I didn't like being among loads of people. So that's a bad analogy, but you get the gist. I'm quite excited. Hello, that workday was really fun. The cinnamon buns, I don't know what happened to them. They tasted the same as usual and they were delicious, but they had somewhat exploded in the oven. I think I might have put too much sugar in the butter sugar spread that goes inside them. But anyway, they were still yummy. They're supposed to look like this, which is the first set I made a few weeks ago. These ones look slightly more artistic. Anyway, they were yum. Let me talk to you about two more of these books that I have started. I started reading The Family Clause by Jonas, Hassen, Khemiri. I realise it must probably be Jonas and not Jonas because he is Swedish, and this is translated from the Swedish by Alice Menzies. And this one I think I am going to keep reading. I'm not 100% sold on it yet, but I am intrigued. It starts off with three different people, a father, a son and a daughter. And the father, who is a grandfather in this, is coming through an airport in Sweden to come and see his children again. And he's excited for his kids to meet him at the airport, which they have always done. But then he gets there and they haven't met him. Then we hear the son, who is getting ready for his father staying in his office. So he's hiding all of his favourite things to eat so his father doesn't eat them, and putting away all of the nice things he doesn't want his father to touch. And he has no plans to go and to go pick up his father at the airport, because they haven't done that in the last few years. He says since he became a father himself. And then we see his sister, who has forgotten that her father is coming to visit, and she's in a taxi coming home from a party. When the grandfather gets to the airport, he talks about how he can see his wife, and he's talking to his wife, but she's actually not there. She died a few years ago, and actually they were divorced well before she died, and she's taking the mick out of him, saying, "Why are you romanticizing me? We haven't been together for a very long time." But he's losing his eyesight, and he says that his tunnel vision is making him see or want to see all these various things that he can't see. So yes, I'm very intrigued by this. I'm not sure it's 100% my style, but I haven't read a family saga in a while, and I'd like to give it more of a go. The other book that I started reading is this one, and I don't really know how I feel about it. So this is Feathertide by Beth Cartwright. I think I said at the beginning of this video that this is middle grade. It's not middle grade, or at least I'm pretty sure it's not. The reason I thought it was is because it has this quote on the front by Alex Bell, who is the polar bear, the author of the Polar Bear Explorers Club. So I assumed that this was a children's book. It looks like a children's book. I just felt as though this was marketed as a children's book. But then it opens with a woman who is pregnant, and she's collecting fish from a fisherman, and she's going back to where she lives. And when she gets back to where she lives, she starts going into labour, and she calls the women who live with her to help her. Again, it still feels like a children's book. But then the women, when they come, are called the whores. And it turns out that they're all sex workers who live together. And I'm not saying that sex work isn't something that can be referred to in a children's book, but it just seems like a strange thing to label them as the whores, and then we don't hear their names for quite a long time. It's a strange word to enter into someone's vocabulary, because middle grade is normally 8 to 12. So I was thinking, okay, I don't think that this is middle grade. And yet it is written as if it is in other ways. So it's kind of a hybrid book, I think. It is on paper everything that I should love. It's about a girl who's born with feathers over her body. It's steeped in folklore. It's very slow, which I enjoy, and it is beautifully written. Let me find you a paragraph. So it says, "From a distance, the house looked like a fat candle which had been lit too many times, ready to collapse in on itself, its chimney an ever-burning wick. The windows were kept dark like suspicious eyes squinting at the town below. It was perched so high on a hilltop that on some days, particularly in the autumn months, its roof would completely disappear into dancing mist. Sometimes it was so clogged with cloud that we would have to bring a chimney sweep from the town to clear the flue. Even then, its chimney pots were already dusted with snow, a prophecy of the winter to come." That is beautiful. Even though it's slow, I felt as though it was a bit too slow for me. I wanted something a little bit more bite. in the initial chapters that I read. So I'm not saying never with this book at all. It's just at the moment I'm not hooked on it. And I'm also still trying to figure out who the audience of this book is, because I realise on the inside it also says it's great for fans of the Night Circus and for fans of The Bear and the Nightingale. It's intriguing. It's a bit of a mystery book, and I'm not sure how I feel about it right now. I am going to continue reading the other 3 books that I have to talk to you about, and while I do that, I'm going to insert a clip here where I show you the meal I made last night. I made pasta from scratch from the first time, and I was a bit apprehensive about doing that because I don't have a pasta machine, you know, one of those rollers where you can make the pasta sheets really thin. I was just doing it with a rolling pin, but it worked out fine. In fact, more than fine. It was very delicious. So I will insert that here. I have read the beginning of the final 3 books, and I think I'm going to keep all of them. So, Aimee Bender's novel, The Butterfly Lampshade, is about an 8-year-old girl called Francie who believes that there's a butterfly living inside her because she swallowed a dead one once. And her mum also believes that she has bugs inside her. So her mother at the beginning hits her own hand with a hammer because she thinks there's a spider inside it that she needs to kill. She's then admitted to hospital having a psychotic episode, which is something that has happened before. So I'm not sure if magical realism is being used in this book to explore mental health, or if there is something else that's going on. But I really like the way that this is being told. Francie's gone to stay with her aunt, and that's where I stopped reading. So I've just read the first couple of chapters. The writing in this does feel, I would say, more accomplished than in her other books, and I've enjoyed her other books before, but this feels very definite. It feels very rooted. I feel like I'm at home in it, and I've only just started reading it, so that's a really good sign. I read the beginning of Islands of Mercy by Rose Tremain. As I said, I've never read any of her novels before, which is why I was a bit unsure as to whether or not I would keep this one, but I remembered as I was reading it why I had chosen to keep it, to try it out, and that's because this has a queer relationship in it. So it has a relationship between 2 women. One of these women has moved from Ireland to Bath. She sold a ruby necklace that she owns in order to have enough money to set up a tea room. I mean, baked goods and queer relationships, yes please. The writing style in here isn't 100% to my taste, but I think I can be persuaded. So I'm going to continue with it and see what I think of it. I also read the first third of Barbara Kingsolver's collection, How to Fly in 10,000 Easy Lessons. And I think I'm going to continue reading this now, and I'll finish it and talk about it in my wrap up. But briefly, my thoughts. I'm really impressed by this. Obviously, she's been around for a long time. She's a very well-respected writer. She's got a lot of novels under her belt, but poetry is a completely different beast. If I had to compare the writing in this to other poets, I would compare it to Alice Oswald, to Don Patterson, specifically one collection, Sharon Olds' book Odes, which is one that I really loved. The beginning poems in this are instruction poems. The ones after that, she's talking about her time in Italy. I find there's a lot of warmth to these. However, they do feel so measured and sculpted to perfection. Like, they won't move if you prod them. They have been reworked into a solid, specific shape. And I am all for reworking poems and playing with devices. I mean, I teach that. I write poetry. I love doing that. It's amazing to do that. But I feel like these are almost too perfect. They have lost some wildness. The poems that I love the most in the world are poems that still have that hint of playfulness to them, that rawness, that have allowed their ink to kind of seep out a bit from the lines. There's something a little bit rigid about these poems, which will appeal to so many people. I think if you like Wendy Cope, for example, you will really like these. It's just not my personal taste when it comes to poetry, but that doesn't mean I'm not admiring it and I'm not very impressed by it, and that there aren't some poems in here that I'm really loving. I just don't think this is going to be a favourite overall. So there we go. I've gone through all 7 of those books and decided to keep 5 of them, which actually doesn't help my TBR that much, but never mind. I'm probably going to read A Lover's Discourse and How to Fly in 10,000 Easy Lessons in the next week or so. So I'll include that in my next wrap up, and I'll get around to the other books whenever I can. Did you have any of these books on your radar? Are they on your radar now? What have you been recently? What have you been reading recently? I would love to know in a comment down below. So please do tell me. I hope you're all doing okay, and I'll speak to you very soon. Lots of love. Bye.